My name is Samantha, and my life story is quite unconventional. I live with my dad in an isolated location, far removed from the hustle and bustle of society. Despite my affection for him, I can't help but find his behavior eccentric. Our home is fortified like a fortress, complete with surveillance cameras, motion detectors, and imposingly high fences. Growing up, I always thought my dad was overly cautious, perhaps influenced by an excess of horror films. He insisted on homeschooling me, cutting me off from the typical school experience. This has been my reality for as long as I can remember, and I have no recollection of moving to this secluded place or any knowledge of what became of my mother. My father's penchant for secrecy and his strict rules, especially regarding social media, only added to the mystery. When I was 14, he discovered I had created a social media account. His reaction was extreme. He confiscated my phone and destroyed it with a hammer. That incident was a harsh lesson, and I never attempted to engage with social media again, knowing the consequences. However, there was one outlet he allowed: video games. I found solace in a mythical war game that I played online. It was there that I met a player named Dark Horse, who drew me into an enthralling virtual world. We would spend countless hours together, battling fantastical creatures, conquering kingdoms, and immersing ourselves in lengthy conversations that stretched into the early hours of the morning. Dark Horse had a way of making me laugh and feel at ease. Despite the common caution against talking to strangers online, I felt a sense of security and connection with him. My fondness for him grew rapidly, to the point where I would spend days on end in my room, completely engrossed in our gaming adventures. Embarrassingly, my fear of missing out on the game led to extreme measures like using a bucket in my room instead of going to the bathroom. My dad noticed my obsessive behavior and threatened to take away my gaming privileges if I didn't start leaving my room. I vehemently refused and shared this with Dark Horse. His response was to jokingly suggest getting rid of my dad. While it was said in jest, something about his tone unnerved me. One night, my gaming session was abruptly halted when my dad stormed in and disconnected the game, declaring I'd get it back once I'd earned it. The following days were agonizing, filled with constant thoughts about the game and worry over how Dark Horse might react to my sudden disappearance. Eventually, my dad relented and returned the game, but with strict limitations. I could only play for 2 hours a day. Frustrated, I retreated to my room. When I logged back on, Dark Horse immediately contacted me. Instead of anger or frustration, he was in tears, fearing I had gone forever. His emotional reaction, though unsettling in hindsight, flattered me at the time. I reassured him of my return, but the restricted gaming hours weren't enough for Dark Horse. He began pressuring me, questioning if our bond was strong enough to defy my father's rules. This felt manipulative, and it escalated when he asked me to be his girlfriend. The situation started to feel increasingly complex and manipulative, leaving me unsure of how to navigate these intense emotions and demands. I reluctantly agreed to Dark Horse's demands, but things quickly took a turn for the worse. He became increasingly insistent, complaining it was unfair that, despite our relationship, I hadn't shared personal details about myself. My dad had always cautioned me against revealing personal information online, so we had always used only our screen names. When I expressed my discomfort, Dark Horse grew angry, accusing me of not trusting him and threatening to stop playing with me. The thought of losing my only source of entertainment and connection was unbearable. Fearing a return to loneliness and isolation, I caved in under the pressure. I lied, telling him my name was Lisa and giving him a random town name. He'd introduced himself as Owen and claimed to live in the same town. But our brief moment of connection was shattered when my dad burst into my room, demanding to know who I was talking to. In a panic, I couldn't respond, and he angrily confiscated my headphones. Furious, I lashed out at my dad, accusing him of imprisoning me, only to be met with his decision to dispose of all my video games and gaming equipment the next day. My world felt like it was crumbling. Seeing no other way out, I decided to take a drastic step. Owen had messaged me, offering to rescue me, and asked for my address. In a moment of desperation and fear, I sent him the address. He instructed me to pack my bags and promised to pick me up at 3 a.m. That night, as I packed in silence, my dad entered my room, seeking a conversation. Still seething with anger, I refused to speak to him. He left, visibly upset, but I was too focused on my escape plan. At 3 a.m., I quietly slipped out of the house, stepping into the unknown and leaving behind the only life I had ever known. In a bid for escape, I stealthily navigated around the fences and motion detectors, finally standing at the end of the street, engulfed in darkness and uncertainty. Doubt crept in, urging me to reconsider, but just then, headlights pierced the night. Owen had arrived, setting my heart racing with a mix of excitement and apprehension. However, that excitement quickly turned to alarm. The car approaching me was decrepit, patched up with duct tape and barely holding together. My idealized image of Owen shattered when I saw him. He was far from the person I had imagined, unkempt, wearing dirty clothes, and exuding an unsettling air. I instinctively backed up against the fence, desperate to return to the safety of my home. As Owen approached, professing his love and our supposed destiny together, my discomfort intensified. Overwhelmed by his appearance and odor, I firmly told him this was a mistake and started walking back towards my house. To my dismay, he didn't relent but instead chased after me, declaring his intent to care for me. The situation escalated as the motion sensor lights triggered, alerting my dad. He rushed out, positioning himself protectively between Owen and me. A confrontation ensued, with Owen provocatively challenging my dad, claiming we were meant to be together. The sight was too much for me. I ran back into the house, frantically dialing the police. From inside, the sounds of their altercation were harrowing. I retreated to the closet, my heart pounding in terror. The police assured me they were on their way, but in those agonizing moments, I feared they wouldn't arrive in time to prevent the worst. As I huddled in the closet, Owen's heavy footsteps echoed through the house, accompanied by his chilling declaration that we could finally be together, implying he had taken care of my dad. Terror and confusion swirled within me. What had he done to my father? My attempts to stifle my cries were futile. They grew louder as panic set in. Suddenly, Owen found me. He peered into the closet with a sinister smile, and it felt like the end. I tried to retreat further, but he reached for me. In that moment of sheer terror, I screamed, and almost immediately, the police burst in. Relief washed over me as they apprehended Owen, cuffing and removing him from the scene. The officers informed me that my dad was injured and needed immediate medical attention. Guilt overwhelmed me as I accompanied him in the ambulance to the hospital, blaming myself for everything. After a night of anxious waiting, I learned my dad would be okay. When he was able to speak, he asked for an explanation. With a heavy heart, I recounted the entire ordeal. Then it was my dad's turn to reveal a long-kept secret, the truth about my mom. His voice trembling, he began to unravel the past. He explained that my mom was a person who always saw the best in people, a trait that led to her tragic end. She was killed in a car accident while fleeing from a dangerous man, someone she had met online. She had come across an ad claiming to help sick children and, moved by compassion, not only donated but also reached out to assist him in his mission. Hearing this, I felt a mix of sorrow, shock, and understanding. The pieces of my sheltered and secretive upbringing started to fall into place, shedding light on my dad's overprotectiveness and fear. This revelation changed everything, painting my past and my father's actions in a completely new light. When my mom discovered the man she had tried to help was actually a scam artist, she decided to cut ties with him. However, he began to stalk and blackmail her, instilling such fear that she kept it all hidden, even from my dad. One fateful night, she finally confided in my dad about the ordeal. While driving home, she noticed the man following them in another car, which led to a terrifying chase. In a state of panic, she tragically crashed into a truck and did not survive. The man responsible vanished without a trace. My dad revealed this with deep regret, expressing his sense of failure in protecting her. He had made a vow to ensure my safety at all costs, explaining his overprotective nature. As we embraced, both of us in tears, I understood his actions better and promised to be more cautious. He apologized for his extreme measures and for isolating me. As for Owen, I later learned from the police that he was mentally unstable and had a history of online stalking. He was to be confined to a mental institution far removed from any access to video games. This information left me shaken and more aware of the dangers lurking online. Now, back in school and surrounded by friends, I've found a healthier balance in my life. I still enjoy video games, but am much more vigilant about my online interactions. This experience has taught me a valuable lesson. Not everyone can be trusted, and it's crucial to guard your personal information carefully.